Hey everyone, today we're covering Ira, now coming to CC. From my understanding, there's going to be celebration events that you can go to, so like at your local game store where you can acquire this hero, I believe, which is, if that's true, such a better process in place. So I just want to say that. I don't know if anyone from LSS even watches these, but I think that's a really awesome way to do it. I do think you can maybe try a different style of her. However, I do think that with all of the years of Blitz data, ever since she was the tier 1 deck, you know, like during like Welcome to Wraith era, like the premier Blitz deck for so long, we have so much data, even up to her LL. I actually got on the LL leaderboard the last week of Skirmish when she was legal, playing the exact same game plan, which is just you play pure mid-range numbers and you beat your opponent over like 20 turns, right? This is a grind fest. This is for people that really like min-maxing their numbers and only get pure joy out of playing the same 2 hands every single game. That doesn't mean that it's boring. You're making a lot of interesting blocking decisions, and there are some points where you do need to pivot into a little bit more aggression or take a more defensive route. But this deck, from deck building, does play on a pretty, linear game plan. The strongest point of this deck is Flick Flack plus her hero power. Her hero powers is always giving you +1 value every single turn cycle, and Flick Flack just lets you play a math-focused game plan where you are blocking with Flick Flack and usually a blue combo card, right? So something, any of these are all fodder for Flick Flack. Or even in your reds, right? We have red cards that are mainly here is, stat stick checks, right? You have a 1 for 5 that blocks 3, but it has combo on it, right? Which means that with Flick Flack, let's say you block with 2 cards, right? You block with Flick Flack for 4, and then you block with, let's say, Pounding Gale for 5 now, right? With the 2 defense buff. So you block for 9, right? We'll put that into the equation for your turn cycle. On your turn, let's say you're just playing a Pounding Gale, right? Your play pattern most turns is going to be pitching a blue to go Kodachi. The second Kodachi is going to get +1 from Ira's effect. So it's going to be Kodachi for 1, Kodachi for 2, right? 3 damage with 2 resources. And then you're going to play, let's say you're 1 for 5, right? So you're dealing 8 damage. Maybe you're threatening mass momentum as well. But if we do, 8 damage plus the 9 that you blocked, we're talking 17 points of value, right? If you're playing a yellow Flick Flack, it's still 16 points, right? It makes every single card in your hand a 0 for 4 in some way, right? And even blue, 15, right? Perfectly fine. We're not upset playing blue Flick Flack. Every single time you play this card, it's insane, right? If you consider blue Flick Flack with the +2 buff, this is a blue D-React that blocks for 4. So we're playing Mass City over here, and we're going to beat our opponent on turn cycle averages every single turn. And if they are not playing like a super strong combo deck or a deck that plays some kind of attrition, fatigue-based game plan, which we can also answer, you will just best your opponent. You will just mathematically win. To facilitate that game plan, we have a lot of good stat defensive cards. So we have Fate and Sync. We also have good value attacks like E-Strike. The biggest thing with this deck also being a mid-range style game plan is you do want the ability to flex into a little bit more aggression. The most premier staple I need to point out is CNC. Ira without CNC, unfortunately, is an entirely different hero. The fact that you can present a 2-card 8 by going Kodachi for 1, CNC for 7 is already mathematically strong, right? You're playing a 2-card 8. Something like Wounded Bull, like 2 Scar for Scars, like mathematically it's good. But you're playing CNC, which is also a disruptive on hit. Not only is it a disruptive on hit, it is coming in for 7 on a break point. So just putting 2-3 blocks in front of it does not actually stop the effect. That playline alone, I have personally witnessed a lot of people get very tilted by it. It's a very strong playline, and it is absolutely a staple in this deck. In terms of other strong 2 costs, we have Flying Kick. This means with your Tunic counter, what you can do is with 2 cards, you can deal 10 damage. So you pitch your blue, you go Kodachi for 1, Kodachi for 2, and then you have 1 floating, and you'll just pop your Tunic, and then you'll play Flying Kick. It'll be Chain Link 3, and it'll get a +2, right? So it'll be a 2 for 7. So 2 card 10 with Tunic up. Really good. And then when it comes to the rest of the cards, we do need the ability to pivot into a little bit more aggression, right? Part of the strength of good mid-range decks is when your opponent, let's say, has to fully block out the CNC, right? They want to protect their arsenal, they block with 3 cards. Maybe they block with 4. The challenge there is how do you convert your hand, right? If you draw 4 D-Reacts, you get completely penalized, right? And then your opponent still has their arsenal, or maybe they set up a new card. So you also need the ability to put the gas pedal on when you need to. So we have cards that do that, right? We have snaps. That's pretty important, right? So we can play E-Strike. Let's say we bottom a card and we were going to send another attack anyway. We don't need to bother drawing a new card. We could just give it +2 for 7. And then maybe we swing our Kodachi and then we play like our 2 cost, or maybe we go Kodachi, 1 cost. And then we also have something like Bittering Thorns, right? Bittering Thorns is actually really good. We can play it into CNC as well, right? So if Bittering Thorns hits as a 1 for 4 with Go Again, we can then play CNC with +1 from Bittering Thorns, the +1 from Ira, and it'll be CNC for 8. But what this also lets us do is that if our opponent just passes and gives us 4 cards and we have Bittering Thorns, we can just pop off, right? We can actually punish our opponent for giving us a full hand, and we can put the gas pedal on. The same deal goes for Razor Reflex. This card is really good in the deck. You're mainly going to put it in your arsenal to synergize with something that you need to give Go Again, like Snatch or E-Strike, but this will also just let you convert damage from hand, and it's also really powerful in the end game. People have to respect Razor Reflex, and true Kodachi lock starts at 4, because if your opponent no blocks the Kodachi for 1 when they're at 4 life and you Razor it, they lose. Same philosophy for something like Spinning Wheel Kick. This is mostly just a 1 for 4 with Go Again that can block for 4 with the Flick Flack, but this is mainly here to let you convert more damage from your hand. While you could maybe build an Ira deck that plays full fatigue, I do think the strongest version of the deck is something that pivots in between it mid-game. And then when it comes to our blues, we mainly just have combo blues. If you really want to min-max, you'll play things like Dishonor over maybe something like Rising Knee Thrust, because Dishonored attacks for 2 instead of for 1. That's the reason for all of these. There's really nothing else to it. They are just strictly better if the game comes down to something like that. The biggest question here is whether we want Warmongers to be another different combo blue card, but I think that Warmongers just slots in too easily into Ninja. You are never penalized under any circumstance for picking War with Warmongers Diplomacy, while also having the ability to potentially time walk decks like Viserai and Azalea. I think there's too much of a reason to play this that we don't need to worry about losing out on a combo block card. When we go into our sideboard, it's pretty easy to figure out what we're doing, right? We have more disruptive 2 costs like Erase Face and Weakest Link. We can play these for 7 with Ira's ability after swinging our Kodachi for 1. We have Needle. This is actually really cool. So Needle comes into any deck that you know is not playing D-Reacts. It's basically, all of your aggro game plans, your decks like Dash, basically anything that's not going to be playing D-Reacts or like 4 block cards like Victor or Earth Embodiment decks. The reason why is because if you go Kodachi for 1, Zephyr Needle goes up to 3, which means that a 3 block does not destroy the Zephyr Needle. So as long as they don't play a D-React on it or have a 4 block card, like Test of Strength, your Needle is guaranteed to live. It's really powerful, and you're going to play this in every single deck that you are doing a gambit with that they don't play D-Reacts, which, knowing some lists and knowing some heroes, is a very easy call to make. We have some Arcane Barrier depending on how deep you want to go for the matchup you're playing. And then this is the one decisive card that I don't know if it's good or not. This is in here for the video for the sake of putting this info out here for people. I will test this and then I'll decide later on if I think this card is good or not, but I think it has potential in this deck. It's a 1 for 5 that works obviously with the curve of going Kodachi for 1, Kodachi for 2, 1 for 5, right? You're getting your 2 card 8. And into aggro decks that play heavy concentrations of attack action cards, this has a potential for a CNC-like effect. I think this is like the only good one out of all the different versions that they made. They made a lot of these like kind of analogous CNCs that do similar things. The one that targets instant cards feels like the worst, but this one actually I do think has potential as a 1 for 5. You could also play something like Censor in this spot. You could play something like Torn of Tempo, Take the Tempo, which I've also considered. Torn of Tempo does have some weird niche synergies with some of the other cards in the deck, specifically different blue combo cards that you can play. There are some blue combo cards that synergize with Torn of Tempo, so there is a potential to include something like this. And then also Waxon is in the maybe board if we want to tech for things like Aurora. Right now it's in the maybe board. We can see where the meta ends up. And that also goes for some of these cards, right? If no blocks completely drop out of the meta, if Zen is unplayable, and if we're not playing against things like Acilio all the time, or even maybe like Enigma, then Weakest Link becomes a lot worse, right? It gets downgraded, and then we play a different 2 cost that has a disruptive effect. So your sideboard is mainly trying to figure out which tech you want for those matchups. So this is just a very simple idea to just convey that information. Don't take it as gospel, change it how you need to for your meta, whether that's locally or the event that you're attending. And of course, this is very early, so we don't really know what the meta is going to look like. I'm dropping this before, well before you can even play this hero. But I wanted to get the list out here just because I'm excited about it, and I think it's pretty good to talk about. And to just clarify here, if we go up to the equipment, Shoot Go is mainly just here because it blocks 2. That's basically it. You can play Breaking Scales if you want. It's still 2 value. It's just 1 defense, 1 offense. It's really marginal, so pick whatever you want. But until next time, thank you for watching.